I'm still waiting on, one councillor won't be here till about 20 after 1 or so, and the other one, I don't know where she's at. So regardless, we don't have quorum to hold an actual official special meeting of council, so we're just not going to do that. It'll be much more of a casual conversation, which is just fine. The only thing that it really means is all the same information gets shared, but there just won't be official minutes taken of this meeting and everything. But it will still be live streamed. So do you need to say you got your little piece? So Jody will just put the ground rules so that everybody's clear on the live streaming of this meeting.
Yes, so please note that because the meeting is being live streamed and recorded on YouTube, attendees acknowledge that in accordance with Section 17.2 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, names, addresses, and other details provided when speaking at the meeting will be publicly shared. Should you have any questions regarding the collection or disclosure of your personal information, please contact the Legislative and Advisory Services Division or myself by sending an email to FOIP, that's FOIP, at highriver.ca. Thanks,
Jody. So we'll just open with some introductions. I'll take care of our bench. So we have Councillor Brenda Walsh on my far left, our CAO, Chris Prosser, Head of Legislative Services, Jody Hipkin, and Councillor Michael Nychuk on that end. And then we got the awesome Kurt running live stream over there. So, and I'll pass it over to you, Wade.
Thank you very much, Mayor Snodgrass. I'm Wade Clark, Assistant Deputy Minister of Policy Division for the Department of Energy and Minerals. I'm joined by Kim Lalonde from Environment Protected Areas in their Land Use Planning branch, and Marilee Pattinson Perry, also from Environment Protected Areas in the monitoring area of that department. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'll just have a few opening remarks, if that's okay, and then we can go into the program. Really appreciate the Town of High River making time for us in the engagement on the Alberta Coal Industry Modernization Initiative. In December, Minister Jean and Minister Schultz announced the initiative, and building off of the work of the 2021 Coal Policy Committee and their report and recommendations. And the initiative has tasked our department, along with our colleagues in Environment Protected Areas, to develop the rules from the Coal Policy Committee's recommendations, which will guide responsible coal mining activities and practices, with the goal of ensuring that the waters in Alberta are protected from mining contaminants. We're developing rules that will prohibit mountaintop removal and ban new open pit mines in the eastern slopes, and also looking at the royalty and financial structure related to coal development to benefit Albertans. And in that announcement, as many of you likely already know, banning new open pit mining in the eastern slopes and keeping selenium out of the water through the development of a modern long-term legislative and policy framework that will guide responsible coal mining practices. The new policy will be centered first and foremost around protecting water, and the Coal Industry Modernization Initiative will also prohibit mountaintop removal coal mining. And in the first half of 2025, we're currently in the midst of engaging with the coal industry to develop a new comprehensive set of rules and regulations. And our task is to have that work done with our recommendations to our minister by the end of 2025. And the initiative, of course, we're very much aware in the south here in the closed basin the importance of water, and we're also very much aware of the ongoing activities with the mines in west central Alberta and the abundance of metallurgical coal, which is in demand worldwide to make steel for millions of end uses, including vehicles, home appliances, farm and industrial equipment, and building materials. And the task that we've been given in the department is to develop clear and practical regulations, which have always played a significant role in Alberta's economic advantage. The intention behind the policy, I think, is clear. It'll be provincial in scope, so both mountain mines and prairie mines are in scope, as well as provincial scope in the royalty review that's underway for coal as well. So I think with that, Mayor Snodgrass, that's all I have for an introduction, and maybe we can get down to brass tacks and have a conversation about next steps.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Wade. And first off, Wade, I really want to thank you over the past, 5 years that this has been going on. Full disclosure that Wade and myself and Councillor Jamie Barton grew up together in High River from birth on, pretty much. So, and we've always had a good relationship, good friends through our whole lives, and the fact that you've always kept the conversation open to me with phone calls and texts and everything, and I've always been very, very grateful for having that connection, Wade, and you've been great. And honestly, the same through the whole piece with Minister Brian Jean. He's always been available to my calls and my texts, as well as the Premier as well, because we have that relationship as well. So everybody's been great, but regardless of what we agree on and what we disagree on, having those lines of communication open is greatly appreciated. So, like I said, it's a casual conversation, but I do want to go through kind of, laying out for the GOA, kind of where High River stands on this issue. Not much has changed since we did our presentation to the Coal Policy Committee back in August of 2021. And obviously there's an enormous amount of history on this coal debate in Alberta over the past 5 or 6 years, which, we do not have that kind of time today to go through all of that, the old history and everything. So today I really want to be focusing on what the future looks like, rather than hashing out the past and what we see as not so much a modernization of the existing policy, but far more being a new policy that fits the future of Alberta. And so how this is, we'll present this today, open it for conversation. If you have questions from environment or from energy, Wade, we're wide open to the questions. Councillors might have further questions for you, but following the meeting today, then whatever information we gather, I'll take it back to council in a couple of weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how we can line up meeting schedules. And I'll get a document that's approved by council that I will submit as an official submission to this consultation process. So the biggest thing I always get questioned on is, the current mines, with Grassy Mountain Mine being the big one at the forefront of everything right now, is why is High River involved in this? And I have former councillor Bruce Masterman, who's attending today as well, that's been involved in this since day one, when the town of High River stepped in. And our number one concern is water. period. And that's, when we're talking about Alberta resources, there is no more precious resource in this province than the water that we have that is sourced directly from our eastern slopes. The number two is our landscapes. Our eastern slopes landscapes are not only the source of water, but they define what Alberta is and the beauty of Alberta. And we will not stand for allowing foreign interests to come in and blow up our eastern slopes and ship the coal and our landscapes around the world, and leaving us with the mess that we have to try to clean up someday. And it can never be reclaimed to its original state. It's absolutely impossible. So the third one is how it directly affects the town of High River, and being the Highwood River itself. And we are stepping into the Grassy Mountain conversation at this time, because I do not believe that if Grassy Mountain is allowed to proceed, that the coal leases that are located north of the Crow's Nest Pass will also not be allowed to proceed. That once you start the one, and once that infrastructure is put in place in the Crow's Nest Pass, it's the only loadout location to get to that Highway 3 rail line, I call it. It's probably got an official name, but that's what gets the coal to Vancouver and then overseas. So there are a number of leases that start to crawl further north, and yes, it'll be decades to come before it gets up here. But I got a 10-year-old that's I don't want him sitting in the same position I am. Hopefully he's smarter than that to be here, but I don't want him to be, and my kids to be, dealing with this in 40 years time when if this is allowed to proceed. So our motto within the town of High River and this council has always, one of the big pieces is that we make a positive difference today and for generations to come. And that is why we are weighing into this conversation. The other one is the negative effects that coal mining can have on and will have on our existing industries, not only our communities and municipalities and the water sources, so that when we turn on the tap it's safe to drink, but our agricultural producers, lots of them are here today, that the farming, the ranching, but also the food production that comes with that, and especially down along the Oldman River, the food production that takes place in the Lethbridge area. Tourism, recreation, sport fishing, hunting, they all rely on our eastern slopes being intact and being healthy for those industries to thrive, and we cannot be sacrificing those industries for the benefit of a coal company being Northback right now, that and Grassy Mountain that provides a direct threat to the Oldman River watershed. So from there we get into the Coal Policy Committee presentation that Bruce and I did back August 10th of 2021. That presentation, I understand, is still available to GOA staff. It's all there under the work that the CPC did. And what we presented was not the option of a modern coal policy, but what we called at the time the Alberta Coal Restriction Policy, which focused on three items primarily. First one being no further coal exploration or development will be permitted on the eastern slopes of Alberta, period. There's no longer categories like there is in the 76 policy. There's only the area which is defined today as the eastern slopes. Existing coal mining operations in the Hinton Grand Cache areas would be permitted to retire gracefully. albeit not expanded. And then reclamation of lands disturbed by coal exploration activities on coal exploration permits issued prior to February 8th, 2021 must be reclaimed no later than December 31st, 2025. Obviously, that piece is outdated because of, that's just impossible for that to happen on that timeline. But so our recommendations, we sent that out to every municipality in Alberta. We sent it to a number in Saskatchewan and Manitoba that are affected by the South Saskatchewan watershed that flows through all those up to Hudson Bay. So that policy was endorsed directly by 25 Alberta municipalities, 2 First Nation bands, 7 Alberta organizations, and 6 businesses. There was so that was directly that directly endorsed those 3 pieces. There was also motions passed by 39 municipalities and First Nations bands that not endorsing what we were putting in front of them, but that expressed direct concerns over where Alberta was headed in the world of coal development. So. Now, the updated pieces that I want to put in front of you today for this consultation is an updated Alberta coal restriction policy and what Alberta looks like beyond coal. And this comes from based on the recent actions of the government of Alberta and primarily Minister Brian Jean and Premier Smith. We're actually far more concerned now than we ever have been as to where we're headed with this. The December 20th announcement was very concerning to everybody, and when Minister Jean revoked the previous ministerial orders and put the new one in to kind of open it back up to exploration and development. So in the handout that I presented, these are all listed, number 5, or is it number 5? On mine it is, but regardless, the updated coal restriction policy. So the first one would be to commit to no new coal exploration or mine development, and that includes this subsurface, surface, anything called an advanced project, this high wall mining, supposed technology. It's all the same thing. Every ounce of it is the same thing. You are still removing overburden. You are still dismantling the mountains and getting into the wordsmithing of mountaintop removal and everything else is a waste of time. It's all the same thing and creates the same problems at the end of the day. The second one would be to recognize selenium pollution from coal mining as a significant threat to water quality for biodiversity and downstream water users, and no available, effective, and proven mine scale treatment of selenium exists. And that's a very true statement, because when I've talked with this Mike Young, CEO of Northback, and previously back in 2020, 2021, when we had the former CAO of Atrium Coal, Andy Caruso, present to us and met with us. When I asked about that, the technology was called a pond. And that still exists today. When you look at the AER's coal mining wastewater guidelines from 2014, that's still the chosen way of treating wastewater from coal mines. So, the third one would be to recognize there are other pollutants from coal mining, processing, and transport that create human health risks and must be avoided. Recognize that coal exploration and mining are incompatible with the intent of the Eastern Slopes policy for watershed protection. Ensure that there will be no allocation of water directly to coal mining. Agree that the only acceptable mitigation for the environmental and health issues from coal development is not to permit mining to occur in the first place. revoke existing coal exploration permits and ensure reclamation of disturbed lands occur immediately, allow existing operational mines to continue, but with the application of new stringent rules for minimizing and treating selenium contamination of rivers, to apply the provincial national selenium guidelines for the protection of aquatic life in rivers as a regulatory requirement for compliance by operational mines, something that is not happening today. Increase surveillance of existing exploration and mining operations to ensure adherence to all regulatory conditions with available transparent findings. Strengthen monitoring and regulatory protections with the application of updated science to safeguard our air, water, biodiversity, and lands for existing operational and legacy mines. Not to issue reclamation certificates for existing coal mines until the restoration of water quality and biodiversity standards are fully met. To ensure Albertans do not become financially responsible for reclamation and other environmental liabilities in the short and long term on both the footprints of coal exploration and development. Obviously, we have a massive problem in this province with our orphan well programs, of which more and more information comes available as to who and what's involved in that currently, and it's not good, and we cannot allow that to be increased through coal exploration and development. Next one, not allow mine expansion for existing operational mines beyond their existing and permitted footprint. To update and complete new land use plans with regional cumulative effects assessments inclusive of spatial and linear footprints, thresholds which will reflect these elements, so a strong message resonates from the Alberta government over the future of coal on the eastern slopes. Consider and implement a new planning region that incorporates the eastern slopes as an entity into itself and ensures land use in this vital landscape is dealt with in a coordinated fashion and watershed protection is prioritized. And to enact legislation to protect the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains from any future coal exploration and development. Now, the desired outcomes, and a lot of these desired outcomes come directly from the work that the Coal Policy Committee did back in 2021. And so we're strongly suggesting the Government of Alberta move on these recommendations to build confidence amongst Albertans that our air, land, water, and biodiversity will not be sacrificed for coal development, and to finalize with robust public engagement and consultation all the planning areas that constitute the entirety of the eastern slopes, and this is part in the Coal Policy Committee recommendations, items 1.1 and item 3, which includes the Alberta Land Stewardship Act updates. Ensure that decisions on land use will be made on the basis of evidence and the best available science. Commit to honest, open, and timely dialogue and consultation with Indigenous peoples over land use planning for the eastern slopes, and that comes from Coal Policy Committee recommendation number 2. Create certainty with appropriate legislation so Albertans know that there is a commitment to environmental protection of the eastern slopes to achieve a priority for watershed protection. Commit that these recommendations will come into effect immediately, and ensure any compensation offered, whether related to Crown coal rights or fee simple title to coal, would be consistent with the terms of the Mineral Rights Compensation Regulation. Furthermore, it is our suggestion that the GOA update financial aspects of existing coal development, including freehold mineral rights. These are again recommendations that were made, the Coal Policy Committee, recommendations number 4, 5, 7, and 8. There was a number of them that dealt with the financial aspects and of coal development. And the Minister of Energy to report on implementation annually until such time as all coal mines and lands disturbed by coal exploration in Alberta are closed and have been remediated. And that the Minister of Energy shall request the Auditor General of Alberta to review and report on design and implementation of the Mine Financial Security Program as it relates to coal. The Minister of Energy shall review the mine financial security program as it applies to coal to ensure the program collects sufficient security based on a conservative estimate of coal mine reclamation liabilities for Alberta's existing coal mines. The Minister of Energy shall retain any compensation owed to companies under the Mineral Rights Compensation Regulation, Alberta Registration 317-2003, until leaseholders have fulfilled any and all reclamation obligations they have as a result of exploration activities. The Minister of Energy shall direct the Alberta Energy Regulator to prepare and publish a report within 1 year describing the extent and likely costs of remediation for any coal developments for which there is no solvent owner and for which it is likely the public will be required to pay for reclamation remediation costs. The Alberta Energy Regulator shall update this report annually. So previously, the town of High River has articulated that the inherent value of the eastern slopes only exists with those landscapes remaining intact. The headwaters and landscapes of our eastern slopes are critical to the future of our province. Our communities, ag producers, food production, tourism, recreation, sport fishing, and hunting all rely on these landscapes and watersheds producing clean water and being intact. The economics, again, we've stated this for years now, that no amount of jobs or money created by coal exploration or development can offset the negative effects to the environment or human and animal health. Town of High River and Albertans look forward to a favorable outcome to these recommendations and acceptance on the part of the government of Alberta to move beyond coal. And I'll leave it there if you have any questions. I know it's a lot. Or do council members have any questions for Alberta Energy or Environment? If not, I do. Weird, eh? So I'm curious, Wade, in this, what are we calling it, CIMI, Coal Industry Modernization Initiative, who else are you consulting with on this?
Yeah, we've reached out to the municipalities in the South Saskatchewan region, principally because closed basin. Anyone who wants to have bilateral like this, we've offered that. We have spoken as well with a couple of municipalities in the west central part of the province, where some of the existing mines are as well as First Nations in the south here and across the province, and anyone who wants to have a bilateral, we've had those as well. So we've talked with 3 different First Nations as well, and that conversation's ongoing as we go through the development of the pieces here. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is about the Coal Conservation Act and the rules under it. We recognize the Coal Policy Committee also made recommendations around the land use planning components. I think there's some attractiveness in perhaps for us looking at any consequential and related pieces that fall under the land use planning piece and making our recommendations that may flow from the technical aspects that the Department of Energy and Minerals is working on. I think the timing is good given that we're in the middle of the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan 10-year review period right now as well. I think, and obviously we'll take the submission back into government and work through the analysis there, and we look forward to the town's official submissions to feed into the process as well.
You're also consulting with industry, correct, as well? So it'll be...
That's right.
The whole umbrella of who's involved in all this. Okay.
Yeah, so our consultation with industry is focused on tenure holders and associations, and recognition that the government government announcement sets the clear direction, and the intent in engaging with industry is to understand the implementation and the ability to implement through the any changes to the coal conservation rules and any other legislation that may need to change to implement the direction from the December announcement.
Okay. I don't know who this kind of lands with, but it came from, some of the comments made. Now, sorry, going back to this modernization initiative. If I remember right, Minister Jean said he wanted a new policy to be in place by December of this year.
Yes, our marching orders are to get recommendations in, and I think Minister Jean's keen to bring as much certainty as we can, as quickly as we can, to the marketplace as to what those new rules are. So that's our marching orders, to have something put together before end of year for government to consider.
You got a lot of work ahead of you. Your summer's going to suck, isn't it? Question, maybe for Kim with environment, and this goes as well, Wade, with the AER, and just I don't expect an answer, but this 2014 coal mining wastewater guidelines, it is concerning to me when Minister Rebecca Schultz talks about Alberta having world-class, the most stringent regulations around this stuff. It's completely false. We don't, and that's a big problem. The 2014 guidelines, coal mining wastewater guidelines, don't even mention selenium. And it speaks directly to wastewater treatment technology in item 3.2 being simply settling ponds. The other thing that concerns me with that is the design. They are only requesting a design to be designed to a level to withstand a 1 in 100 year flood, which is mind-boggling that these were done in 2014 after we had just had the 2013 floods in southern Alberta. Now, 1 in 100 is nothing. It's not even on the radar for being any kind of a safety measure. After what we went through, the berms and diking system around High River, it's enormous what level of catastrophic event it would take to recreate what happened in 2013 in High River. But we were very forthright and determined to make sure this town was protected. But with those existing ponds, and that's just with the existing ones up there, but any new ponds that might be constructed with the expansion of Grassy Mountain, for them to only have to be built to a 1 in 100 is not good enough. That's not even close. 2013 would blow those out, and I'm sure they did. It just hasn't been. But there's also studies that show the selenium contamination in the Crow's Nest River. So, I really want the government to be careful when they're talking about the most stringent regulations that we have. We can't be saying that when we know full well that we don't. And there's a reason why the Australian coal companies are in Alberta, and that's because the regulations in Australia are too stringent. So they're leaving their hometown and coming here because it's easier here. And unfortunately, politically, they've been able to manipulate their way in and have poor decision-making being made over the last 6 years or so. But that's not for you guys. That's on the political end of things. So, which brings me to the next, conversation that I've been having with a few. Obviously, I'm deeply connected in this and know a lot of people that are deeply involved in this the science and everything behind it. And what, you know, one piece is that Alberta does monitor water quality across the South Saskatchewan River Basin, but most of the water quality and sampling is done outside of the eastern slopes. So it's much further downstream that they're looking at this. And you can look at Alberta's water quality data portal, which shows there are no active water quality stations upstream of the Old Man Reservoir. That needs to change. So, you know, I question why are we not monitoring those streams further up into the actual eastern slopes? And there was one, and this has been publicly made, but one of the Government of Alberta scientists published an article last year revealing high selenium in the Crow's Nest River system directly from the legacy mines of Grassy and Tent. And, you know, the problem is already there. And why would we expand this problem? It's mind-boggling to me, because we only have to look into BC to see where, not only BC, but look at the Hinton and Grand Cache river systems, then their contaminant levels exceed values. Small fines get put in place, but that's part of a coal mine's business model, is that it's a line item on their budget for fines, because it's cheaper to pay the fines than do the actual work. So is there any enforcement or mitigation actions that will be taken by Alberta Environment to deal with that legacy coal mine pollution that was identified last year that you know of, Kim?
I'm going to actually defer to my colleague Marilee Pattison-Perry.
Thank you. Marilee Pattison-Perry, and I'm with Environment and Protected Areas, the Exec Director of Airshed and Watershed Stewardship. And it is my team that carries out the provincial water quality monitoring that you've mentioned, as well as produces evaluation and reporting, scientific reporting on the results of our monitoring systems. I'm not one of the regulators, and so I can't speak for the Alberta Energy Regulator, but in response to some of the findings that we did put out around the impacts from legacy coal mines at Tent Mountain and Grassy Mountain, the Alberta Energy Regulator received that information from our scientists, and they did put in an additional director-initiated amendment to increase their monitoring around what was coming out, in particular at Tent Mountain, draining into one of the ponds that waste rock was draining into a particular pond. And so as a result of the monitoring and science work, there was regulatory action taken there to increase monitoring. That may or may not have answered the question you're asking.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives some context to it, and I appreciate that, Marilee. It's perfect you're here. And you know, Wade, I know you're going to be one of the bigger ones writing this new policy. So can you assure us that the Coal Industry Modernization Initiative will mention legacy coal pollution and, you know, have pieces in there that will, you know, deal with the AER regulations and deal with selenium and the other contaminants that more stringent monitoring will, even though, let's say, we get our grand wish and no new coal mines or exploration happens anymore, we still need to monitor and we still need to reclaim the existing sites of Tent and Grassy. And will that be part of this new policy?
Yeah, our role would be to provide advice into our elected leadership. I think in terms of any legacy sites or existing sites, exploration footprint, that type of thing. I think as part of the Coal Industry Modernization Initiative, I think there's some certainly some attractiveness for me and some consequential and related amendments to address some of those broader issues, but that's something we'll have to take back and run through the analysis and think about what that could look like.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Marilee, maybe back to you regarding, we're getting information that's telling us that Alberta Environment is making cuts to its water quality program, and is that true that cuts are being made? Now, one of my friends in the crowd had a meeting with Rebecca Schultz this morning and asked her about that, and she had a bit of an answer, but I'm curious to hear what you know. Are there any cuts being made to these water quality monitoring programs?
Thanks for the question. That's a question that is of great importance to me because we have to deliver these long-standing programs. We've had these programs in place since the 1970s, since the Department of Environment came into existence. So our provincial water monitoring, whether water quality, water quantity, groundwater, we're very proud of the provincial water monitoring program that we have. We have over 100 sites in our rivers and tributary water quality monitoring. Over time, the costs of delivering that monitoring go up. As you can imagine, the costs of many things go up, the cost of fuel, the cost of the equipment that we buy, analyzers and data systems, they all have increased in their cost over time. So on an ongoing basis, we look at where are we best positioned to continue collecting that information, sending it out to labs. We work with various laboratories to review the results of our water quality monitoring. So all of that goes into an annual process of what are the available costs and resources, both people's time, dollars, capital equipment that needs to be renewed or updated. And so at this time, we're still planning to maintain our water quality, our water monitoring programs. Like you, I have to figure out, with increasing costs and where do we best place some of that. So we are looking at things like where are our monitoring stations located? And if we were to try to add something, where would the dollars come to cover that? Are we moving something that we no longer need in order to get new additional information? We have a 5-year water quality monitoring plan. We plan in sort of 5-year increments. So our low-tech waters plan, that's our rivers and tributaries water quality monitoring program. We're currently renewing to get the next 5-year plan out into the public. Based on how has our first 5 years gone, what are the questions that are going to be facing us in the next 5 years. And so as we look at that, we are looking at some of the questions that we're here to discuss with you today, and how does our monitoring system provide information that's timely. The monitoring program, of course, has to cover many different impacts on our rivers and streams. Our lakes and reservoirs, our groundwater, it isn't designed to be single industry specific. We are designing things that are going to allow us to find over time trends and impacts of many different types of monitoring. So all of those things go into the design of our programs. We are not seeing significant cuts to those programs at this time. We're seeing, continued work and updating, I guess I would say. As the pressures on the province increase, the economic activity and population growth that we're happy to see here in Alberta, we want to make sure that our monitoring systems continue to be designed to provide information in a timely way. And as you know, the water quality monitoring, or water quality portal and other places our data is provided publicly, so others can take a look at that. But we also review and seek to provide relevant information out in terms of what we're seeing in our monitoring programs.
Thank you. Councillor Nychuk has a question.
No question, just a comment that came out of that conversation, talking about rising costs and to Mayor Snodgrass's point about cuts happening to the monitoring of water or air, as your department looks after. You made a comment that's about industry not being industry specific, but could it not be an opportunity, and this is a bit of a sidebar, I guess, that industry is born with those costs of providing monitoring, maybe not the full facet of it, because you can say the industry sits beside X river and there could be implications of X, but a portion of these things coming back to industry as a cost of doing business in our province. Just a idea, a thought that passed through my head. I thought I'd throw that out there because you said you're seeing increased costs, and revenue has to come from somewhere to take care of that. And I don't know if we as a government have ever considered putting that on the backs of business and industry to a certain extent that would be a fair portion of the cost of doing business to ensure that they're maintaining their environmental and sustainability initiatives as a business that is in the province of Alberta. But so just a comment, not really a question. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. We do consider those sorts of things, and I would say that there is a portion that industry does contribute as a condition of their environmental authorizations, that they will be required to undertake monitoring of the impacts of their operations, reporting on that data. For the coal industry, that's provided to the Alberta Energy Regulator, and then that is also shared with our environment and protected areas in terms of what the information that's coming from industry's own monitoring, which is at their cost, and how do we share that information. From an air perspective, often industry will pay into local airshed groups, which then also undertake environmental monitoring in terms of air quality and deposition. And in the case of water, what we're working on is to make sure that, well, what's the province monitoring at its more ambient, like broader scale, than what are the end of pipe, end of stack types of monitoring and fence line monitoring that industry will do, and how can we make sure that we're looking at that data as well and being able to compare and see if there are any gaps. So your comments are welcome, and thanks for appreciating, I guess, some of the things that we look at when we say, well, what does it actually cost to deliver and provide information to Albertans on the condition of our environment? Thank you.
Thanks, Marilee. Do you have any questions for us? Give Marilee, Wade, on what you need before I finish up here.
I think we're good. Thank you very much.
You're good? Okay, appreciate it. I just got a couple of closing remarks, and one is regarding these lawsuits that are in play right now. And my ask to the government of Alberta is that we fight these lawsuits as Albertans. The lawsuits are speculative. They've thrown a number out there. These coal companies have thrown a number out there, $16, $18 billion, whatever they want to be compensated for. But truthfully, the lawsuits are BS, because the lawsuits are completely speculative, assuming that they would get a mine approved and developed and finished and made that much money, which they have no assurance and never have. You've got to go through environmental impact assessments and everything else. There's a whole process that you got to go through before that. Now, is there compensation that might have to be paid on any exploration work, or I don't know. Is there some compensation there? Yes, maybe. But full compensation needs to be fought, and needs to be fought in the courts. we're Albertans and we protect this province, and that's why we're involved. And I am not comforted by the fact that the Premier and the Minister of Energy are using these lawsuits in any way, shape, or form as justification to say, oh, well, we're kind of screwed. We have to allow this coal mining to happen or else we'll be paying out this money. No, that's weak government on the political end of things. There's no question. As tough as they try to sound, that is just weakness in the government, and we cannot do that. We're better than that in Alberta, and we don't lie down and just allow others to railroad over top of us, whether it's the Australian government or the American government at this time. Which brings me to my final piece. Because we have this beautiful opportunity that I'm not talking on the political end of things with Brian or Danielle, but I'm talking directly to the staff. And all of you that are here today, you have no idea how important you guys are in this conversation and in the future of this province. You are the ones that provide the sanity and the data and the science to the political decision makers. And we need all of you to be very strong on that to these individuals. We live in a very weird political climate right now. It's bizarre, wonky. And like those of us, and I always tell my council, when we come into these positions on the political end of things, we are, as our council members, we are the least educated people in the room compared to our staff. Our staff are full of planning degrees, engineering degrees, everything else. I'm a mortician. I rely on the information these individuals give us. And our provincial politicians need to have that same mindset. But often they come into with an arrogance mindset that the bureaucrats don't know anything, and boy, I should really know, yada, yada, right? You guys are the critical piece to making sure they have the right information and pounding the table to make sure they are listening to that information and not being manipulated by outside entities, whether it be the coal mining companies directly or the Coal Association of Campbell, Coal Association of Canada with Robin Campbell, a former Alberta politician, right? Go into these lawsuits with former Premier Jason Kenney, now working for Bennett Jones, lining up these lawsuits against his own province. It's bizarre. It's wonky. It's not okay. What I'm getting at is what I will plead with all of you today is, and understand how much you are valued and respected in that you are the ones that provide the truth to our politicians. And then we cross our fingers that they hopefully listen and appreciate that as much as we do. So thank you very much for being here today. Thank you, Wade, for lining this up, and you were the first one on the phone on December 20th to phone me and let me know that Brian was making this announcement and everything, and we had a good conversation after that, and you were the one that first offered to come down and meet with us and allow us to be a part of this, so it's very much appreciated. The second I asked for, hey, should Alberta Environment be coming down with you? No problem, done. And here you are today. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, because without conversation, we're screwed. So I'll end it with that, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the time and the respectful dialogue, and we look forward to next steps with y'all.
Excellent. Thanks, Wade. You're good, Kurt.